Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you share with us and really pull out the most important insights, the key takeaways for you. Today we're tackling something pretty personal, but also, universal. It's all about improving sexual desire, both for ourselves individually and crucially within our relationships. Our goal here, our mission for this deep dive, is to explore the physical stuff, the emotional stuff, basically what's going on underneath, and find some practical solutions, things that can actually lead to a better quality of life for you.
Yeah, it's a great topic. And it really resonates because, honestly, understanding this stuff has such broad applications. It's a real path to, well, significant personal improvement,
Okay.
making our lives, our connections just feel more fulfilling.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Let's unpack this. We're going to dive into the complexities behind desire, pull out some maybe surprising facts, and definitely practical strategies from the sources you've sent, trying to give you a clearer picture of what's really happening. So let's start with the basics, the physical foundation, and here's where it gets really interesting. The role of hormones.
Hormonal balance, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah, physically speaking, our desire is, well, it's profoundly controlled by this delicate balance of sexual hormones. And the main player, the one with the biggest impact on desire, is testosterone. Now, people often mistakenly link it just with aggression or, purely male traits, but its role is, frankly, much more complex and vital for absolutely everyone.
So it's doing more than we might think. What are those other critical functions? Oh, definitely. It's essential for regulating metabolism, for one. Supports muscle development, and yes, directly influences sexual behavior. But what's really critical to understand is that low testosterone levels, and this is in both men and women, can have really wide-ranging negative effects. We're talking decreased libido, obviously, compromised sexual performance like erectile dysfunction in men specifically, but also things like hair loss, general weakness, finding it harder to build muscle, a slowed metabolism, even increased body fat. It's pretty comprehensive.
Wow, that's quite a list. It affects overall well-being then, not just sex drive.
Exactly. And here's something striking from the data. Modern individuals, even if they're the same age as their ancestors, might have almost half the testosterone levels. That's huge. And it just compounds the natural decline we already see with age.
Half. That's genuinely staggering, a really crucial bit of context. So, okay, when people suspect their testosterone might be low, what are the sort of go-to solutions, and are they always the best first step?
Well, a common path people look at is using exogenous hormones, things like bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And look, it might seem like a quick fix, maybe an easy option, but really the logical first step should always be trying to repair the body's own mechanisms for producing hormones. If you haven't figured out why your body isn't making enough naturally, just jumping to external hormones can actually negatively impact your body's own ability to produce them down the line. It can sort of shut down the factory.
Right, it can create new problems.
Precisely. It might lead to other endocrinological challenges later on. It's like patching a leaky pipe, but not fixing the corrosion that caused the leak in the first place. It might hold for a bit, but the underlying problem's still there.
That makes perfect sense. Don't just patch the leak, fix the actual pipe. Okay. So, speaking of things that might be, let's say, throwing our systems out of whack, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about the powerful influence, and it is pervasive, of modern media on desire and relationships.
Oh, absolutely. Platforms like pornography, social media, they have a profound effect on relationships, intimacy, and ultimately sexual desire. And, when we talk about porn consumption, the stats from U.S. studies are actually quite surprising. They challenge a lot of old assumptions, like the idea it's mostly men. That's just not accurate anymore. One study found 70% of the adult U.S. population reported some contact with porn, and another showed it was almost evenly split, think 60% men, 40% women.
60-40, wow. Okay, so that traditional taboo is definitely breaking down. It's much more widespread than people might realize.
Much more.
What's truly fascinating, I think, is how this constant media exposure messes with our brain chemistry. You mentioned dopamine earlier. How does that actually work in our heads?
Right, it's this dopamine effect.
Yeah.
So when you're constantly hit with excessive novelty, opening tons of tabs, watching porn, or just endlessly scrolling social media, it triggers these rapid, intense spikes of dopamine. But your brain is smart. It tries to protect itself. So over time, it actually reduces the number of dopamine receptors, which leads to desensitization.
Meaning?
Meaning real life stuff, real interactions, they just don't feel stimulating enough anymore to give you that same satisfaction. The core insight here is your brain is literally rewiring itself for instant, fleeting gratification,
Wow.
which makes real life connection, the sustained effort it requires, feel Yeah, insufficient. So it negatively impacts sexual behavior, sure, but also just overall motivation. People become less inclined to put in the work needed for real intimacy with a partner.
It sounds like our brains get hooked on this huge artificial dose of the feel-good chemical, making everyday life seem kind of bland by comparison. And this ties right into that instant gratification culture we see, especially in the last couple of generations. It's linked to, longer lives, more leisure time in developed countries. I heard an analogy once comparing the brain's response to infidelity with repeated lying. Does this artificial stimulation affect our neural pathways similarly?
Absolutely. Think about it. When the brain repeatedly engages in something like lying, it literally builds new neural pathways. These pathways can actually divert it away from behaviors needed for healthy relationships like communication, commitment, sincerity, discipline. The same principle applies here with artificial dopamine hits. When motivation isn't earned naturally, through effort or real connection, people seek those external stimuli, opening multiple tabs, using multiple screens. Soon even that isn't enough. The brain needs increasingly intense external input for the same dopamine rush. It traps people in this endless, unsustainable cycle.
Like chasing a digital dragon, always needing a bigger hit.
That's a good way to put it. It's unsustainable.
So if we're conditioning our brains for these massive instant surges, how do we rewire back to where real life feels rewarding again?
The key is we have to recreate internal sources of dopamine. Think about how endorphins, for example, can be generated naturally through things like acupuncture. That's way more sustainable than relying on external drugs, right? Our bodies have these internal mechanisms, these pathways for satisfaction. We've just often overridden them by always choosing the quick external fix. This taps right into brain plasticity, the fact that your brain literally reroutes its pathways based on your behavior.
So our actions actually change our brain structure.
Exactly. And when we constantly go for rapid rewards, low-effort stuff, we get that quick hit of satisfaction, sure, but it doesn't last. Even if self-gratification is the only goal, this approach just doesn't work long-term. Biologically, we only have finite amounts of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. Big, sudden releases deplete those reserves fast. Your nervous system needs time to recover. If you ignore that, your brain simply can't regulate your mood properly because there aren't enough neurotransmitters left to handle the stimulus you're seeking.
Okay, so it's not just about chasing dopamine highs.
No, not at all. The real goal isn't just maximizing dopamine. It's about reconnecting with the satisfaction you can get from daily life, from stable, sustainable things. Making that fundamental shift also impacts our willpower, believe it or not, and even how predictable our own behavior becomes.
That's a powerful connection. Brain chemistry influencing willpower and predictability. And this all ripples outwards, doesn't it, into our relationships? How does this digital world, this constant stimulation, affect our standards for partners and the health of our relationships?
It creates this pervasive issue of constant comparison. It's almost unavoidable. You end up comparing your real-life partner to these curated, often heavily edited, frankly unrealistic versions of people you see on social media or dating apps. And that just breeds perpetual conflict in relationships. Physically, this comparison actually changes your neurotransmitter balance, your brain activity, even hormone levels. But it goes even deeper than that. There are environmental factors too, like chemical contamination in our world. These have led to what we call epigenetic changes in recent generations.
Epigenetic changes. Can you break that down for us? What does that actually mean?
Sure. It basically means that while our core DNA sequence isn't changing, the environment is causing certain genes to behave differently. Genes that should be active might get silenced, and genes that should be silent may get expressed, turned on. This can lead to higher rates of disease or various imbalances, and these changes can affect our energy levels, how irritable we are, how easily conflict sparks up, our hormonal balance again, even our basic instinctual desire, and just how we function day to day. All of which directly impacts our relationships. It's like an environmental and chemical layer on top of the psychological one.
I see. So these big picture environmental and digital things feed right into the nitty-gritty of relationship conflict. What are the common flashpoints then?
Well, in relationships, especially long-term ones like marriage, conflict often boils down to 4 basic factors.
Yeah.
Issues around power, struggles for recognition, battles for control, and the need for respect. Now, in today's world, already unbalanced by this constant barrage of external stuff porn, other addictions, social media pressure, these inherent factors just flare up more often.
Yeah.
It leads to more frequent arguments and, sadly, greater distance between partners. Sometimes sexual activity can even degrade into just an animalistic release, a need for discharge rather than flowing naturally from love. Because, let's be honest, The best sex usually comes from love, from deep connection. And look, traditional influences have always been there. Family background, education, expectations, past failures, fears, unfulfilled dreams, personal values, those fixed limiting beliefs we all carry. They've always played a role. But these current external pressures significantly ramp up the challenges. And we definitely see a correlation. When hormones like testosterone and estrogen decline, relationship conflicts often increase because sexual desire changes. Menopause is a natural example, perhaps, showing how profoundly hormonal shifts can influence desire and relationship dynamics.
Okay, so we've explored a lot of the causes, the impacts,
Right.
hormones, media, dopamine, conflict triggers. Let's shift now to solutions. What can people actually do? What actions can we take now to start rebuilding connection and moving towards positive change?
Well, here's the inherent challenge. Healthy habits are generally just harder to form and stick with compared to unhealthy ones. It sounds simple, but it's true. If you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, human nature is largely optimized for immediate survival, right? Seeking the path of least resistance. Not necessarily for long-term thriving. Think about food choices. Healthy options, often harder to find, maybe less accessible, usually more expensive. Unhealthy choices. They're everywhere, they're easy, they're cheap. Our sort of default programming is geared towards that immediate survival, which, as we age, can lead to physical issues and poor decisions about our long-term health. It's why breaking bad habits feels so incredibly hard sometimes. We're often fighting millions of years of wiring.
Yeah, that resonates. I personally really believe in the power of what I call a concatenation of good habits, like linking them together to improve basically all areas of life. It's like compound interest for your well-being. So given that natural resistance you mentioned, what broad recommendations do you have for listeners wanting to start this process?
Well, the good news is I am optimistic. I see a growing movement, a societal shift towards, let's say, returning to the sources. More focus on self-help, physical well-being, nutrition. People are searching for it. Now, some environmental changes, like how our food is grown now with pesticides, fertilizers, those might represent irreversible shifts. It's a new reality we live in. But it doesn't mean destruction, just different. We can still adapt.
Yeah.
So for fostering a healthy relationship where desire can naturally thrive, I'd recommend cultivating these characteristics. Kindness, definitely. Compassion, real commitment. Blind trust, which is huge, making sure there's mutual enjoyment and fun, high honesty, equality as human beings, regardless of intelligence or income, independence, respecting each other's personal space, profound respect, and just a harmonious flow in how you interact.
That's a truly beautiful list for a healthy connection. It sounds like a blueprint for sustainable happiness together.
And crucially, one more, vulnerability. Now, a lot of people shy away from this. They think vulnerability equals weakness. It absolutely does not. Vulnerability is about having an open heart. It's about integrity, speaking your truth. It actually takes immense courage. And when you offer that vulnerability in a partnership, the results can be magnificent. It builds incredible depth. Now contrast that with the destructive behaviors to avoid at all costs. Criticism, constant accusation, getting defensive, showing contempt, that's a big one, and rejection. These things just erode love and desire bit by bit, and they ultimately lead to indifference. And indifference, that's the true opposite of love, not hate. Indifference is what really kills a relationship.
That's a really powerful distinction. Indifference, not hate.
Right.
Wow. And it really feels like the physical side we talked about earlier, that hormonal balance, the brain chemistry, it plays a crucial role in making it easier to actually sustain these positive emotional and relational behaviors, right?
Absolutely. A solid physical foundation makes all these deeper relational changes much more achievable, more sustainable. If your hormones are more balanced, if your energy levels are decent, if your brain isn't constantly screaming for an artificial dopamine hit, you just have a much better shot at putting in the consistent effort needed for real connection. So for listeners, here's some concrete, actionable advice. Start with changes that feel manageable, things you can actually sustain over a long period. Don't try to overhaul everything overnight. Practice patience. Real improvements in relationships, in personal conduct, they genuinely take time and consistency. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And maybe a final, powerful action step. Choose one specific thing, just one, something to change or improve today. Could be physical, maybe cut out one sugary drink. Emotional journal for 5 minutes. Relational, actively listen, really listen to your partner for 10 minutes without interrupting. Dietary, add one extra serving of vegetables. Then tomorrow, choose another single thing, and another the day after. It's this cumulative effect, like compounding interest for your life, similar to building wealth. It can truly transform things over time.
Thank you. That was an incredibly insightful deep dive. Seriously valuable information there. It really hammers home the power of those small, sustainable steps, doesn't it? And the need for patience, and just how deeply interconnected our physical health, our emotional state, and our relationships really are. So, as you go about your day, maybe ponder this one provocative thought. If our brains are kind of wired for survival, for those quick rewards, what intentional rewiring do we need to consciously undertake to really thrive in our long-term relationships and cultivate that deeper, more sustained joy? Maybe pick that one thing you'll change starting today.
Exactly. Consistent effort, however small it seems. That's truly the key.